It is another edition of the On the Mic podcast and new look in 2024. Hopefully, this continues, and hopefully the first run doesn't go bad. So bear with me and bear with us. But a different kind of podcast here for the On the Mic podcast. As 2024 is officially here, we've done some MMA interviews, but we're gonna look to do something different this year and not just do MMA. And we're gonna do sports talk radio as well. My roots. So I had to go all the way back to my roots, my original roots, and I had to call on the man who got me started. If any of you have followed me for years, I did the math. It's been about 15 years. This man's the guy who got me
Hmm.
started in this business. He is the reason I'm still doing this business. He's the one and only Eric Pedigo. Sir, how are you?
Wow, man. I'm great for one, and thank you for having me. And I cannot believe how long it's been. I mean, are you gonna like give the whole backstory of how it started? It's pretty cool,
Uh,
right?
yeah. let me have you start it, and then I'll just praise you for the rest of the time.
No deal. Okay, yeah, no, that makes me comfortable. Thank you. Um, yeah. So this was like mid 2000s, right? I mean, you can do the math. I'm in my
Yeah.
mid 20s, and I was doing there was a it was called Ustream, right? Just a website called Ustream where people were doing, it was like very early versions of podcasts, a little ahead of its time, actually. I mean, in retrospect. And I was just I did a show from my house every Wednesday night, 9 o'clock, the Eric Pedigo show. And it was broadcast on Ustream, and you could either broadcast on Ustream, and it was like this, camera, chat room, or you could be like a listener and just jump in and bounce around and watch different shows. And I was just doing a random show one night. Who knows what I was talking about? I mean, probably LeBron. I mean, and typically I've been
More than
riding that
likely.
horse. I've been riding that horse for a couple of decades. That's been good for me. But yeah, this kid jumps into the chat room, this teenage kid, and he's interacted and he's engaged and stuff, which I always like when I'm hosting a show, is that engagement. And I think you said something along the lines of, oh man, you're doing what I want to do. And this is obviously not verbatim, and I'm sure I think I said something like, yeah, then do it. You can do it. What? Then just
Basically,
do it.
yep.
You want to do it, do it. And here we are all these years later. You you seem to have taken that advice to heart, my friend, because here you are doing it. Um, so it's super cool. I've been, we don't talk like that often anymore, but I follow your stuff. I like your stuff whenever I see it, and I love seeing that you're still doing what you wanted to do when you were a kid. That's my version
Literally,
of
some
it.
would say I haven't. Some well, that I mean, that's a much better accurate version than I would have probably come up with. But I would have just said I annoyed the crap out of you, and then that led to you and
No.
I doing shows on ericpedigo.com.
Yeah.
And then the this is how long it was, or how long it's been, I should say. I was still bowling as a young teenager on Saturday mornings, listening to Fantasy Football 101 down
Wow.
when you hosted it, and all the way
I
down
still
in
do.
yeah, we'll have you. But calling in at like 9 o'clock in the morning on my way to bowling, and those who now know me as the UFC guy would be like, "We need to go beat this guy up because he used to bowl as a kid." So I mean, that's where it all started. And yeah, UStream was way ahead of its time. I mean,
Yeah.
way ahead of its time. So here we are, and first and foremost, let me ask you, because really, I'm probably not in this, and I'm not just saying this, but I'm probably not in this position without the opportunities you gave me. I mean, there were so many times we had not only great debates, but you'd
Mhm.
have to like be like, "Hey, kid, I've been around a little bit longer than you," and I think a lot of the things you said have always kind of stuck true. Um, I never thought I would have, and I don't think you would have guessed that probably for like 8 years now I'd be covering the UFC. I can't have
No, that was a turn I didn't see. I didn't see coming. And but I
that.
like it for you, man. You seem to have really like sunk into it and do a great job with it. Um, is it kind of weird thinking back, right? Because you reflecting on all those times when you and I would have debates and talks, and I'd have to, check you because you're just a kid. That at that point, I was younger than you are now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy,
I'm
right?
just trying to piece that. Yeah, it is very crazy. It is
Yeah,
very crazy. And that was the thing. So the weird thing for me, and I think you would know this more than most people, is that, a lot of people are like, why the turn? Like, why the UFC? Well, as you know, when I was like early 20s, I started working with a bunch of Chicago Bears players. I started working in actual sports radio. And like my family, God bless them, but they were like, wow, this kid, he figured it out at 22. He's a producer for a sports radio show in Chicago. And then,
yeah.
as sports radio is so famously and notoriously known for, they swept the carpet from underneath my feet. And I was like, wait a second. But I just had a job like 6 months ago. What do you mean? So then took on a empty handshake to go to Philly. And one of the main reasons I'll never like Philly is I think it showed me its true colors in my early 20s. The people are not as trustworthy as I thought they would be. And then their sports teams
I
just,
don't
and
know
their
this
fans
story, Mike.
suck.
Yeah,
Oh, so yeah,
I don't know this story.
I won't say any names or any affiliations, but I
It's
had
all right.
basically
I'll
been
Google it.
told. I basically was told because when my station here in Chicago got shut down, most of us found out while live on air. There was a show.
Whoa!
Yeah, no one told us. They just found
Wow!
out. Yeah, so it was a big deal, especially on social media. And I had a couple radio hosts that I reached out to me, and one in Philly in particular was like, "Hey, man, if you need anything," I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, I've heard this before, and I'm still a kid, so I need a job." So they brought me out, or I flew out to Philly in January of a certain year. I forget the year. I want to say 2015. All right, man. Hey, if you can move here, great. I can move here. Can you give me a month and a half? Sure. You come back, we got a job for you. I move out there. I move in with an old buddy of mine and never hear from them again. And
Wow!
then the person who brought me out there was um, let go. They split up their show. And
Hmm.
it was like, oh, I just picked up and moved my entire life. So, and I don't think I tell this story often, but it was that I was there for about a month and a half, and I was like, I can't do this. Like, I'm back working. I mean, I always worked retail, but I'm back working at the mall again. Now I'm like, I'm doing this internet radio thing again, whatever. It doesn't bother me, but this isn't what I moved out here for. So I'm like, I'm just moving back home. So I knew I could go back to the Illinois Media School where I had graduated. I could get my show back there, and I could be back home and feel more comfortable. And I just remember having Fox Sports 2 on, and I'm packing my stuff at like 1 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, who is this crazy Irish guy? And why is he just knocked somebody out in the UFC and he's yelling at someone outside the cage? So it was when McGregor beat Seaver. I didn't know it was a replay. And I was like, the next morning, I called up my buddies in Jersey. I was like, do you guys know this like crazy Irish dude like fights in the UFC? They're like, yeah.
Yeah.
And and then my buddy was like, he fights this weekend. And that was UFC 189 when he fought Chad Mendes for the interim title and
Okay.
his first title opportunity. I have not missed a UFC event since.
Wow.
Yeah. And then it became one of those things where, I don't have to tell you, Eric, we're going to talk today about the Super Bowl and some NBA scoring. And there's certain things where you're like, why did Dan Campbell go for it multiple times on fourth down? You idiot. Like, it's so easy to do that, right? But what you can't do in MMA, which I learned to love, was you couldn't be like, why did he take that head kick? Why didn't he turn? Because it's a fight, and it's so just as skillfully and intelligent as these guys are, it's so by happen chance that I dipped my head and I got knocked out, or I threw this kick and it got caught and I got submitted. You can go into a football game and for 60 minutes go, well, if Jameer Gibbs doesn't fumble, maybe you don't
Yeah.
have to go for it on fourth down. So for me, it wasn't, and I was never going to be the technical guy. I was never going to be that guy who broke, because that would mean I'd have to go into the gym and get my ass kicked
Yeah. No
24/7.
thanks. No thanks.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. So I just became a guy who, and now in 2024, most women would say, "Oh, you're a typical 30-year-old guy." I fell in love with Joe Rogan's podcast, and I listened to how he made people open up, and I was like, oh, I just want to go this route
Yep.
because you can't get Tom Brady on a podcast and be like, hey, Tom, let's talk to me about when you were at Michigan and now here you are 6 Super Bowls later. Like, isn't this beautiful? But no, I found a love for asking a guy, and I'm like, hey, man, you slept out of your car for 6 months before you got signed to the UFC. You're going to make your debut. What is this like? It just opened up a whole different avenue of storytelling for me. And that's my long winded story on how I got into the UFC. But unfortunately, especially to begin 2024, for those that watched, the lead up between Sean Strickland and Dricus du Plessis wasn't pretty, and it even led to some aftermath of John Anik, lead play-by-play guy, talking about kind of basically how toxic the fan base is. So, doing some self-reflecting, I thought, you know what, I can still love MMA. I can still cover MMA, but I gotta get back to my roots. And so, getting back to my roots with no. But here's how crazy I would say our worlds have been. Right? If remember, we had suicide fantasy football. You've obviously done fantasy football 101, but now I'll start off with a fun question. Did you ever think when you and I first met we would ever be able to have a conversation of Eric, overnight after the championship Sunday in the NFL, the Niners moved from a -2.5 to a -1, and we can bet on it on our phones. Did you ever think we would get
Uh,
there?
I mean, I hoped we could get there because I never saw any actual problem with gambling. If it could be regulated, but no, I mean that shows you how much has changed. We started just on internet, and at that point I don't think I was even on the radio yet, but maybe I was. I'm wrapping up my 17th season on Fantasy Football 101, which is insane to me. And i kind of like the same way you did, because when I started, I was on the internet and I just did a sports show. Along with my sports show, I did a fantasy football show. And then I got an offer to go be on our local sports talk station on the fantasy football show as a guy who would sit in every now and then. And I worked my way into more of like an every week guy to taking over and actually hosting the show. And then I lobbied to get us an additional show, Sports 101, that I could work, because I want to talk about so many things. I don't just want to talk about fantasy football. And then in my real life, I I changed careers completely and I became a real estate agent. And as my kids were growing up, man, it really started taking up a lot of my time. And so I had to cut out the Sports 101 and just come during like the 3.5, 4 months and do Fantasy Football 101. And now that is the extent of my broadcasting. So kind of like you, where we started this wide scope of covering all these things and then narrowing it down to covering one thing. And the same path I went on, where I got all these things I want to talk about and cover, but it's all now condensed. I just talk about fantasy football, and it's a bit, there's like it's not as fulfilling, so you wanting to expand and get back to, and this is crazy, it's like come full circle,
Yeah.
um,
Yep.
internet radio to both of us working for actual sports talk radio stations to swinging it back around to internet radio. And I'll tell you, um, here on your podcast, my time hosting Fantasy Football 101 and being on sports talk radio is most likely going to be dwindling down soon. I've been doing it for a long time, and my what I really want to do is kind of go back to where it started, and start coming out with some podcasts and doing some things like that I can really just dive into things the way that I want to. So I haven't told anybody that yet. So congratulations, buddy. Um,
All
but
right,
it's
breaking
kind
news
of,
right here. You know what? I'm gonna
yeah.
throw my name out in the hat. If you ever want to do shows together, man, I mean, this is clearly it's very simple to get this started. I would love to.
We
I would love to because,
we
like you said,
we will talk, not here, because
no,
I've
no,
got some things in the
obviously,
works.
obviously,
Yeah.
yeah.
I've got some things in the works, and yeah, that would be super cool. Um, I'm I've been thinking on this for a while, so I'm pretty excited about what my future in broadcasting kind of holds. So, um,
I love
yeah,
that.
down
I
to
love
link,
that, and I'm
down to
happy
link
for
up
you.
for sure, man. Yeah, thanks, buddy. I mean, we'll see.
Well,
It's right now it's all talk, but I mean, I'm not scared to venture out and broadcast. So, but that was my long-winded thing to say. Yeah, man, crazy that we can bet on our phones now.
yeah, right. No, and the thing is, in a weird way. Well, the reason I asked that is because I don't know about you, but I know for me specifically, one of the things that, especially in the month at the end of the year that the UFC is off, I spend a lot of time around the holidays with my uncle, and I'm unfortunately the bad guy who got him into sports gambling, and I'm talking every day. And honestly, we should have like our him and I should have our own just gambling show because he'll call me and be like, all right, man, I'm thinking Tarleton State, Texas Corpus Christi, A&M against Portland State. What do you think? And
Ooh,
I'm like, dude, I don't even know. Like, I don't know. But then we'll have the real conversations, right? We'll be like, all right, man, tonight in the NBA, I've got Maxi for 25 and 8 and Embiid for 33. Like, and when there's no fights going on, and that part of my passion for sports talk isn't going, I'm like, man, I'm watching I have NBA League Pass, I have every single streaming service, I have everything I need, and I'm watching these games so intently. Not only with my wallet, but with my heart. And you go and look at we will get to the 49ers, but a nice, beautiful segue here. I looked at last Sunday, I called him. I go, dude, DraftKings has a bet Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson to throw a first quarter touchdown. They boosted it to a plus 125 or something. The most you can bet is $25. He's like, I'm 75% sure of that. And I'm like, yeah, but the defenses, man. And this is when the ball really started, like the hamster started rolling on the wheel in my head. I'm like, what am I like? I'm breaking this down like if I was in front of a camera. And
yeah.
and then like the betting really reignited just who and what I loved, where I was like, Patrick Mahomes is always on fire, but Lamar Jackson's playing great. But I'm like, but the Chiefs defense. And it's like, who's gonna get the ball first? And I'm like, okay, well, I went ahead and made that bet. And obviously it did work out in my favor, but it's just weird now. And I wonder if you felt it where when you bet, it brings so many more storylines to you because especially if you're betting for like props for yardage and everything, you're watching, hey, this guy's not hitting the hole. Hey, this defense is stepping up. It makes you more in tune with the game.
So I'm going to tell you, I'm not as deep into it as it sounds like you are. Like, I don't really gamble. I don't gamble much. I like when
Smart,
I'll tell you
smart.
what. Right, yeah, it scares me, man. They are way too good at it, right? Like they are way too good at setting those lines, and it's just like, yeah, man. How did I miss that by 1 point again? You know what I mean? And so I'll tell you when I gamble. I'll throw something at the Super Bowl. I'll look. You know what I mean? But when the sites like DraftKings are like, they open their sports book and they're like, hey, if you sign up now, we will give you $200 worth of free bets. Right. So a couple of years ago, when they had that going on, I signed up and I just now ran out of money. I've put zero of my own money into that. Right. So just a few bucks here, a few bucks there. Just now, like 2 weeks ago, I put in my last bet, didn't hit, down to zero. I'm out nothing, but I've been putting money on games and little lines and stuff for a couple of years for free. That's how I bet, right? That's how I do it. I do not put my own money on the line. Just fantasy. That's the only time I put my real money on the line. I'll throw a little bit of the Super Bowl because my Niners are in it, but no, man, gambling scares me. There's a reason that it comes with a disclaimer. You know what I mean?
It does.
Because it'll
I,
grab you. Yeah.
I have an opposition disclaimer to that disclaimer. People like
Let's hear
yourselves
it.
just said what you say, and I go, well, here's the thing. I bet at most, like my routine is $5 a day. $5 a day. I'll do $5. I'll do a dollar bet here, a dollar bet there.
Yeah.
And people are like, so every day you throw $5 in. I go, I could spend $5 on a beer every
There you go.
day. They're like,
There
"Oh,
you go.
hold on." And for me, like, it's, funny enough, who would ever thought that we'd be talking I'd be of legal drinking age, because I did do the math. I was about 15 when we first linked up. So,
Yeah, I thought so. I
but
thought you were
yeah,
15,
yeah,
16. Yeah.
yeah. But let's dive into the Super Bowl. We'll get to the Niners. Let's start in the AFC. And I listen, you are a guy, and I say this with the utmost respect and love towards you. When I was a kid, the thing that frustrated me the most was you just knew more about legacies, and I thought I knew everything. Now nothing has changed. I still think I knew. Still think I know everything. But
Yeah.
we are entering now another year of Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. And I was trying to explain this to a lovely lady friend of mine. And I was trying to explain, like, we've never, in most sports, we usually have a gap, right? We've had Michael in the NBA. Kobe came along, and there was a lot of great players in the league, but we didn't get that transcending star where we really had to start talking debate Michael and then, oh, this guy named LeBron James. That's when the debate really started. There's no disrespect to Kobe Bryant. I'm not ranking them, but we were like, Kobe's really, really, really good. He's going to be one of the greatest, but we didn't start that GOAT conversation. Well, as I've grown older, in the NFL, we've had Joe Montana. We've had a lot of very, very good quarterbacks, but that GOAT conversation didn't start until Tom Brady started winning. But as he was on his way out, we had this kid come out of nowhere in Texas Tech and Kansas City, and he just kept winning, kept winning. And we're like, wait a second, we can't even let Tom Brady in this GOAT conversation rest. This kid, he's not even 30 years old yet, and he just keeps doing it. Is it too soon, though? I ask.
Well, no, because to me there's always been multiple ways at looking at these GOAT conversations, and one thing to point out is that Tom Brady played way too long. I mean, not that he wasn't capable, right? But for quarterback years, I mean, he played till he was 45 years old. He should have been out of the league 8 years before he was out of the league. I mean, by normal quarterback standards, right? And that would have given us a little bit of time to reflect on everything he accomplished and then welcome Patrick Mahomes, the next guy. But instead, Brady played till he was 45 and their careers overlapped. So we didn't get that time off. But you also have to think at, like, in the meantime, like, Aaron Rodgers was out there. And that dude at his absolute peak is as good as anybody I've ever seen throw a football, right? And so when you're doing like GOAT debates, it's like, okay, you kind of have to have the whole body of work, because who is the greatest of all time? It's a full body of work. It's what legacy, it's what all did they accomplish in their career. That's one conversation. The other one is at a player's absolute apex in their career, who was the best when they were at their best, right? Because some people don't have the longevity. A little before your time, but I know you know who I'm talking about. Bo Jackson might be the best football player ever at his peak, but he didn't have the longevity. So he never gets thrown in the actual discussion, right? It's Barry, it's Walter, it's AP, it's that. But at his absolute best, Patrick Mahomes is probably the best quarterback I've ever seen on a football field, just skill wise, right? And then number two, it might be Rodgers, just absolute skill wise at his very best, all the way dialed in, as far as never seeing anybody able to do those things. But nobody will ever be able to put a career together like Tom Brady. So I mean, he's got to be the GOAT, right? But that's why these things are kind of fluid. You can't. It's so hard to lock in. I mean, has anybody ever played basketball better than Jokic is right now?
Right.
I mean,
And
really?
he's a second round. Well, I don't. This is funny because we will talk some NBA. But I saw this debate. I want to say it was on KG's podcast. It may have been Gilbert Arenas', but they were talking about how Carmelo Anthony, my guy, felt disrespected that they just gave the second round pick that nobody ever heard of, number 15. And it's like, well, Melo, not sure if you remember how that breakup went, but that's like pulling up to your your house and you're getting a divorce and your wife's got all your stuff in the front lawn. It's like, sorry, did you not know this was happening?
Yeah.
I upgraded. But going back to Championship Sunday, he just does it time and time
Yeah.
again, and it's weird now. It's weird because when Tom Brady was winning all the time, we didn't have Twitter and TikTok and all these other things that make us, and I don't mean us as in you and I just mean as a society, make us hate people, right? And
Yeah.
Taylor Swift is in this conversation, but we just hated Belichick and Brady because they wouldn't stop winning. But then you see Patrick Holmes' wife and his brother and all this, and then the quarterback TV show, and everyone's like, God, he's so arrogant and he's this. Yeah, guess what? No one's saying, oh, we're sick of them winning. There's a few people who are saying it, but time and
Yeah.
time again, we're like, he's probably not going to pull it off. And then he pulls it off, and we're like, he's just that good. So it's weird how the dialogue changed over the last 5 to 6 years, too.
Yeah, you're right. And it's I mean, for Mahomes, we talked about on our show this past week, like because we're on Sunday morning and we're talking about these games coming up. And, everybody I think thought the Bills would knock off Kansas City. Kansas City just didn't look right all year, and they got to go on the road and actually play road playoff games. And people are actually making a big deal about that. Like, like going on the road was going to shake Mahomes. Right. This is Patrick Mahomes we're talking about. And so these are the points I'm making on the show. I said, we got to pick these games as a Niners fan, and something, there's three of us in studio, and we've noticed that anytime all three of us agree on something, if somebody calls in and says, hey, who do I start, this guy or this guy? And all three of us agree, we're wrong every time, right? If it's unanimous, go the other way. And so as a Niners fan, we're picking who's going to win this game. We're going to pick, we're picking the AFC game. As a Niners fan, I'm terrified of Baltimore because of what they did to San Francisco a few weeks ago. So I'm terrified of Baltimore. My two co-hosts both picked Baltimore to win the game. Now, I preface this by saying I'm done. I picked against Mahomes once and I saw what happened. This is Mahomes. These are the Chiefs. We're in the postseason. The regular season doesn't matter. You've got Mahomes and Kelsey in the postseason. These guys don't lose. However, I'm so scared of Baltimore. I'm so scared of the Ravens that I'm going to also say the Ravens in hopes that our unanimous thing holds and that Kansas City wins, because as a Niners fan, I'd rather see Kansas City in the Super Bowl. So I picked Baltimore in an effort to hex Baltimore to actually lose. I know it's but I knew Kansas City was going to win that game. I picked Baltimore on the air, but I prefaced it and gave the reason why I picked them. I picked them so that they would lose. I knew they weren't beating Kansas City. Not a chance, dude. Not a chance.
Before I give my
Unflappable.
thoughts on Kansas City. Yeah, it's crazy, but I'm gonna hit you just with an easy one. Is Travis
Okay.
Kelce the greatest tight end of all time?
Huh. Uh, well, what's his competition, right? We're looking at like Gronk. We're looking at
Tony
Antonio
Gonzalez,
Gates,
Shannon Sharp,
Tony
Antonio
Gonzalez.
Gates.
Um, I mean, right there, and I mean, yeah, I guess like he's kind of got to be because of what he's been able to accomplish. I mean, it's a crazy thing about sports, man. There may have been a better tight end, but maybe that guy didn't have Mahomes throwing him the football. You know what I mean? So yeah, I will say he has had the greatest tight end career of all time, and most talented, most talented we've been able to see. We've been able to see his talent more than anybody else's. It's especially football, man. It's the ultimate team game. It's so hard to pinpoint who the greatest, what is. So yeah,
Damn
sure.
you, Cole Kmet! If only you had Patrick Mahomes.
I mean, who knows, man? Who knows? I mean,
No, but
if Ladarius Green would have been catching passes from like Peyton Manning instead of Dallas Clark,
right.
right? That guy was a
Absolutely. Yeah,
freak.
no, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. No, and you know what? As weird as it's gonna sound, I'm thankful for where we are in 2024 with all the access that we get, because I just went
Yes.
on a rant to start this about how my dislike for Philadelphia. And I'm going to tell you what, if you removed all of Philadelphia, I would ask one thing: keep Jason Kelsey. Keep Jason Kelsey. The man is a
He's
national treasure. And
he's
then
awesome,
as
dude.
and you can't, in my opinion, most people would tell me I'm wrong, but in my opinion, you can't respect Travis Kelsey and praise him without doing the same for his brother. Now, this is
Sure.
just me being behind a microphone, but if you know the story, Travis Kelsey doesn't exist to the NFL without Jason Kelsey. Because when Travis was kicked off of Cincinnati, Jason, who was also at the University of Cincinnati, goes, "Listen, it's my ass too. I'll put my name and my career here on the line. Bring him back." And
Yep.
you know, as many people would say, well, what did he get kicked off for, Mike? He got kicked off for marijuana, guys. It was a thing. It was a very
Ooh.
real thing. I know you can walk into a store now and buy it. I know, right? I know. But that is something that I look at, because we can all look at the numbers, and then now people put him in this conversation of Taylor Swift, and this is ridiculous, and oh my God, American Airlines put two flights together after the Super Bowl was set, 1989 and 87, flight 87 back from Vegas to Kansas City. I don't care. I don't care. The most annoying thing is not Taylor Swift being involved with the NFL. It's the amount of people who are triggered by Taylor Swift being. Did you see this video following the win where Taylor was walking through the tunnel and this one girl to the left side was like, "Taylor," and another woman was like, "Taylor, you ruined football. You ruined football." I'm like, what?
No, I didn't see that video, but it drives me crazy. Like, let the girl just trying to watch her boyfriend play football. Who cares, right? Like, calm down about it. And if if it didn't get such a huge reaction, then the camera wouldn't cut to her every 12 seconds. But because you people freak out about they just keep showing it, right? I mean,
Yep.
we're in a get clicks business, that's the world we're in now. So, the more clicks, the more people, the more internet trolls jump on there to talk about how horrible she is for football and how much they hate, how much they show her. And, it's every time they click and leave that comment, man, that just inspires them to put her on even more. So, yeah, keep it up. I mean, once these idiots figure out how algorithms and things like that work, maybe they'll calm down on that stuff. But it doesn't bother me. It's just she's just there to watch her boyfriend play football. She's allowed. She's not in the control truck saying, "All right, cut to me again, cut to me again, cut to me again." That's not her. She's just there watching football. She's allowed to. So yeah,
It,
no, it's annoying.
it
Not
doesn't
her
help
being
when Chris
reacting.
Collinsworth it doesn't help when Chris Collinsworth or Tony Romo are going, "I love it. I love her being here." But two things I want to say, then we'll move on. But two things I want to say about Taylor. I saw two moments after the AFC Championship game that like people on the field were able to capture. And one of them was when Travis was on the big stage and he's doing the interview as during the trophy presentation, and he screams, "You got to fight for your rights and party." She's captured like next to a reporter, and she just puts her head in her hands and she just shakes her head like any like embarrassed girlfriend. I'm like, that's
Yeah,
not a woman selling out to like stadium tours. Like, she's just Travis's girlfriend. And
she's
then
like, yeah, my
there's
boyfriend's a dork. Yeah, my wife
yeah,
gives me that all
basically.
the time. Yeah, yeah.
And there's after that, when all that is done and Travis is going to meet Jason, him and Taylor uh, meet and converge, and she's like, "Oh, he's over here," and it's not like she didn't stop and like make out with him or make it about her. She's like, "Hey, congrats, you're a dork," like you just said. "Let's go to your brother." And then she brought him to his brother, and she stepped away, and they had a beautiful moment. And I hated it more because most people are like, "Oh my God, Taylor and Travis," and I'm like, "Oh my God, Jason and Travis," and I'm
There
trying
it
not
is.
to cry.
Yeah, yeah,
They're, they're
yeah,
and
yeah.
that's the beauty of this. But listen, this Chiefs team, as great as those two guys are, and we're seeing just how, and in my opinion, how great Mahomes is without a Tyreek Hill. And I'm the guy who ate all the Miami Dolphin seafood and drank all the Kool-Aid this year. I was all in on them.
They were a fun
I will
team,
say this:
man. They were a fun team to watch. They really were.
they
Um,
were injured. Everyone gets injured. No one got injured the way the Miami Dolphins got injured from
true,
Black Friday through the end of the year.
true.
It never happened. The amount of pass rushers, linebackers, offensive linemen, one after another, and then Tyreek Hill got hurt. It was bad. I think Miami will bounce back. But going from that, it's kind of the been here before. We've seen it all before. Kansas City Chiefs. What we haven't seen is how great their defense has been, and really led by guys who they're not jumping off the page, right? Yes, Chris Jones
One of them
the
is. Yeah,
guy. Yeah,
one of
Chris
them is.
Jones is the
Sure.
guy, but then
Yeah.
you have Karlaftis coming up and making big play after big play. You have Justin Reed, a safety, who when you're labeling your top 5 safeties, you're not putting Justin Reed there. And then you have my favorite player on that defense, Nick Bolton, an absolute stud linebacker, just kind of running the show there for Steve Spagnuolo in that defense. And that's what it comes down to. We can talk about the greatness of their quarterback and their tight end and their coach, Andy Reid. But really, when you have a bunch of guys that no one's ever heard of and they're playing to their absolute best, I'm not going to go as far as to say as this defense reminds me of the Seahawks when they were winning.
Ooh,
However,
okay.
because the stats don't back that up, but we don't really know all these guys yet. We didn't know Richard Sherman all the way through. We didn't know Brandon Browner all the way through. We knew Earl Thomas and a couple other guys, but not stat wise, but just identity wise, that's who I would compare them to.
Yeah, that's fair. And you're right in saying that we didn't know who those players on Seattle were until they won, and then we learned who they were. But this Kansas City defense carried this team all year while the offense was trying to get it figured out. I mean, their record was still like excellent. You know, they coughed up a few losses to some teams they shouldn't have lost to, but without that defense, they don't even make the playoffs this season. That defense was elite, next level, and they play as a unit. Obviously, Chris Jones is the guy everybody knows, and you know, would anybody except for the real diehards even know him if it weren't for the holdout at the beginning of the season, right? Like,
No, probably not.
so because that was such a storyline at the beginning of the season, what was him holding out? I think that's when a lot of people learned his name. But no, I mean it's a scary defense. They play together. They're well coached. They're well prepared, and they have been every single week. And now they're just going on the road and as underdogs, and the defense is just knocking teams out. I'm a little scared, Mike. I'm a little scared, buddy. But
We're gonna move to the NFC. We'll talk about your beloved 49ers. Listen,
thank you.
what was it, 3, 4 years ago? I was all in with you guys when we had this same game in the Super Bowl matchup, because my boy Jimmy G was taking you guys all the way to the promised land. Listen, no cooler moment for me, and I've had plenty of, especially in my UFC time, I've had some great moments. No cooler moment for me behind the scenes to watch that Super Bowl. I know it didn't go your way, Eric, but to go, dude, I've walked the hallways with that guy. You see that, Pat?
So,
I've like
what's your relationship with Jimmy G? I don't know about this.
so Jimmy and I went to the same high school.
Okay.
I didn't play football with him. I did play basketball with him, and you know a lot on the personal side of me. When I moved from the city to the suburbs, and you and I connected when I was in the suburbs, but you had known I lived in the city my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
When I moved to the suburbs, I was the city kid, the loudmouth basketball player,
Yep.
the where
Still
in the
kind of
Patrick
allowed though.
Beverly is this? Yeah, for sure. Um, where in the Patrick Beverly did this kid come from in Chicago?
Uh,
Basically, was basically what I got kind of attached to me. And Jimmy was always the guy who was like, especially whether it be high school ball or if we played pickup in the neighborhood, he'd be like, and I really don't want to share this nickname, but I will share it anyways. Uh, he called me Pendles. That was his nickname for me.
oh,
He would always be like, yeah, right. He's like, I got Pendles, and I'm like, really, dude? Like you, like me, like you. He's like, yeah, dude. He's like, I don't know. You try harder than everybody. You're cool. I don't have an issue with you. And then when I was really working with you or interacting with you all the time is when I was writing for Bleacher Report. And
Yep.
that's when Jimmy was getting out of high school. And I remember going, Jimmy, I wanna write a story on you on Bleacher Report. He's like, no, no. And I'm like, dude, it's not. This is how stupid I am, right? Full circle. I'm like, dude, it's just this website. It's like a blog website. Nobody, it's not like a big thing.
That's
I
so
go,
crazy.
and
I
he goes,
used to write for Bleacher Report too in its early
yep,
days.
yeah.
Yeah, that's so
And
nuts.
and he's like, I'm going to Eastern, dude. I'm not really like, who cares? And I'm like, dude, Jimmy, you're gonna go to the NFL. And this was me saying it to him as he's graduating high school. And the coolest moment outside of him being in the Super Bowl is after Bleacher Report. As you well know, I started Full Scale Sports, and that was a thing
Yep.
for a few years. And the day Jimmy got drafted, which now that number has definitely changed, given the amount of times I called him during a Super Bowl run. Um, and I kept getting, if you call this number again, we'll call the police. But
There it is.
I remember texting him going, hey, congrats when New England drafted him. And he goes, thanks, Pendles. How's the website going? And I was like, what the hell? I was like, I haven't even talked to you. So he was always like a guy that no matter what,
That's
I
cool,
wasn't gonna
man.
be like, oh, I caught a pass. I'd always be like, I played basketball with him. I didn't play football. But it was so cool to see. But take all that aside, man, Kyle Shanahan, that system, everything in place in San Francisco. You bring in Christian McCaffrey. Listen, Alex Smith, what did he say after Sunday? He said he's not in the game. Brock Purdy is not welcomed in the game manager club because I said this last year, and I'll let you have the floor. If Brock Purdy doesn't get hurt against the Eagles, this is back-to-back years of Niners Chiefs, and I don't think there's any debate about it.
Yeah, and I think seeing what happened when when San Francisco played Philly earlier this season and absolutely took their souls and knocked them off course for the rest of the season. I mean, that's what happened, right? Philly was dominant all season up until that week. I mean, they didn't miss a beat. They play in the Super Bowl last year. They don't win, obviously, but they're there. And then this season, they are mowing through the competition until they meet San Francisco. And then they can't beat anybody. Then they're losing to the Giants. They absolutely got their souls taken by the 49ers. So I agree with you that if Purdy stays in that game last season, yeah, they're winning that game and going to the Super Bowl. So um,
You're not
it's
going to
just
address the elephant in the room in that game? They
what's
got
that?
Big Dom kicked off the side. You didn't address the elephant in the room. They got Big Dom kicked off the sideline and banned for the
Yeah, he should have been. That was ridiculous. What
season.
was he doing there? Beat it. You get out of there. It's got nothing to do with you. I was happy to see that. But it's man, it's so hard. I'm like it's been such a fun experience for me just being a Niners fan and going back to the Super Bowl with Jimmy G with your buddy Jimmy. I had no idea. Like I always liked Jimmy. I always thought he was a good player, seemed like a cool dude, right? And I never thought he was the guy for this team. Like there was just all the pieces around all that. It didn't quite fit, I don't think, and that's why I always push back and because I get into these debates online because I allow myself to, and I shouldn't, but I allow myself to. I get into these debates that say Brock Purdy, system quarterback, game manager. You can put anybody in that system. Look, Jimmy G took him to a Super Bowl. You can put anybody in Shanahan's system, and they're going to be good, or they're going to look good. Anybody with all this elite talent is going to look good. I say, okay, but think of it like a race car, right? Like a NASCAR race. If you got the fastest car on the track, is it going to win a race by itself, or do you need a good driver to drive that car? Like you have to have the right driver in place. And Brock Purdy, or as I call him, my sweet baby boy. He's my sweet baby boy, Brock Purdy, and I love him with my whole heart. Is the absolute perfect driver for this race car. Like, that ball goes wherever it needs to go, and it gets there right when it needs to get there. And more often than not, it is incredibly accurate. And it's like, yeah, sure, you could put other quarterbacks in there that would have the same success. Sure. But would they have more? I mean, how are you going to do better than this kid has done this season? I mean, what did he lead the league in? Like everything?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah,
Pretty much.
Yeah. So what are you going to do? You going to put Lamar in there? That's what you don't need somebody that can run for 85 yards a game at the quarterback spot. You don't need that in San Francisco. He is the perfect fit for this scheme. So for me, I'm all in. The way that the defense played in the second half of the Detroit game looked like the way the defense played most of the season, right? The first half, it was like they were nowhere. If you watched San Francisco like I did and all year long, that defense was swarming everywhere, right? Wherever the ball was, there were 3 or 4 guys there immediately, breaking up passes, laying in hits on. I mean, they were there in that first half of Detroit. They were nowhere. It was like they had 10 guys on the field. There were just holes. I mean, everywhere. But something happened in the second half where they kind of bounced back. So, not I'm not going to come out here braggadocious and be like, "Oh, we got Kansas City this time," because it's Kansas City, man. That's Mahomes and Kelsey. Rashee Rice is no joke. Isaiah Pacheco can
Stud.
run the football. I mean, that offense is going, and that defense has not fell off. They are just as good as they've been all season. So, I'm excited. I think it's gonna be a heavyweight slugfest. Um, I'm I'm maybe betting the under. I don't know. I don't know what the lines are yet, but I'm not sure, man. I'm
Well,
excited though.
come on, Eric. If you're gonna bet, make it fun for the Super Bowl, right? Like, my first bet's going on the Gatorade color. All right, that's what I'm doing. Gatorade color first, heads or tails second, and then go from there. Now, I don't want to spend too much time because I want to get 2 more points in sports talk with you before I let you go. But on the Super Bowl, because we're gonna have 2 weeks to digest and discuss and debate. Everyone in this country will, but this is exactly what we want, right? We just praised the Kansas City defense and we acknowledged that their offense really has not missed a beat. We have also done the same with San Francisco. This is literally put all your conspiracy theories to the side. In football, this is what we want come February. The
Yeah,
teams that are playing their best defense with their best offense going up against each other. It's not the Super Bowls that are boring and that suck to me are this team's got a really good defense and this team's got a really good offense.
yeah.
One
Let's see what
usually
gives. Yeah.
and usually when the one gives, it's a blowout, it's a boring game, it's nothing that anybody wants to watch. So this is exactly the Super Bowl that we want. My biggest thing or my big question to you is what is the number one thing you're looking for, not as a fan but as a broadcaster going into the Super Bowl, your one big key?
Oh man. So I mean, you hate to say it, but it's going to be like it's going to be what defense really kind of wins that battle, right? Because these are 2 teams that don't make a lot of mistakes. And you see, like with a team like Kansas City, that they just don't really make mistakes. That game against Buffalo, I mean, Buffalo made more mistakes than Kansas City did, and that's why Kansas City won, right? I mean, that's it. It was more drop passes, just more, just absolutely self-inflicted mistakes. And so it's going to be which defense can hold and force the other team to make a few mistakes because, uh, yeah, you want to be like, oh, it's going to be a shootout and who's going to score the most. But it's these defensive units, man. There's a reason why when you get this late in the playoffs, you don't see Miami because a team
Thanks, Eric.
built on
Thanks.
finesse. A team built on finesse with injuries on the defensive side don't make it this far, right? I mean, there's a reason that in the Super Bowl we see two top tier defenses going against each other with two well run offenses. So it's really going to be on the defensive side of the football. You know, who can punch a ball out, who can cause a big fumble late in the game, you know, who can put pressure on the quarterback repeatedly over and over to force him to make some bad throws. Like that's going to be what decides this game. It's I'd love to say it's going to be like a track sprint shootout, but I just don't see that happening with these two teams.
I'll say
How
this, and
about
because I'm
how
probably
about
going to
you?
do I'll say this because I'll probably do 3 or 4 more, podcasts about the Super Bowl. As of right now,
Sure.
on January 30th, I'm gonna name 2 guys that don't jump off the paper to the casual football fan, and I'm gonna say Dre Greenlaw for the 49ers and Loftus for the Chiefs. One of those 2 guys is going to make your big play of the game. That's because
Yeah.
we know the offenses are gonna be there. Me saying Rashee Rice or Isaiah Pacheco, that doesn't surprise anyone. Me saying Brandon Ayuk doesn't surprise anyone. And listen, I didn't want to take this time to drag Dan Campbell through the mud. I think that's a guy who you knew what he was. And this is a terrible, terrible analogy, but I'll use it because not anymore. But over the 15 years that you've known me, I've tend to love toxic relationships. So if a girl says, "Hey, every weekend I'm gonna go out, get drunk, turn my phone off, and find a new guy every weekend," don't get mad. I'll talk to you on Monday, and I love you. And then 6 months in, I go, "Why is she finding a new guy every weekend?" Because she told me that's what she was going to do. Dan Campbell told us all year what he was going to do, and then he did it, and we were like, "Why would he? Why would he do that?" Like, why is he doing exactly what he told us he was going to do?
You just let us in, didn't you, buddy? You just let us in on some stuff right there.
No, 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 no. This is way in the, I mean, maybe in the
I
past,
couldn't even
but
focus on
uh,
what you were saying about Dan Campbell because uh oh man, hey, you're you know what? She was no good, man. You're better
yeah,
off. You're
I'm
better
fine
off.
now. I'm fine now where
Trust
I'm
me.
at. But no, and I didn't want to because it's too easy right now. We're 2 days removed from Championship Sunday. People just
Yeah,
dragging Dan Campbell. Look, as a Bears fan, I'm worried about Dan Campbell the next 2 years,
you
and
should
this will
be.
be my last football. Yeah, this will be my last football conversation for you, and I know how I feel, and I'm kind of going back and forth. I mean, this is also I'm really bad at analogies, but I'll do it again. You're a
I
father.
can't wait.
It's like having your first kid, and you're like, all right, man. As a man, I want my son, I want a son. I want that next like athlete in the family. I can't wait. But then you're like, I wouldn't mind a baby girl. Like she would have me wrapped around her finger, and you just go back and forth. And that is my conundrum as a Bears fan, because I I like Justin Fields. I don't want to get rid of him. He's shown me a lot. He's shown me promise. But like I mean, maybe Caleb Williams could have me wrapped around his finger for the next
But
5 years.
Justin's
I
not
don't
he's
know.
not your sweet baby boy, is he?
No, no. Here's the thing. He
He's
is.
like a
He
nephew.
is, and I don't want to look the other way. I don't want a Christmas shot for anyone else. I want to spoil Justin Fields. Like I just
He's good, man.
you've been
Justin
around.
Fields is good.
But the thing is, and I don't have to tell you this, here in Chicago, the narrative of we can't screw this pick up, we can't screw it up, but we also can't screw up the process. So you've got Washington and New England right there. Who wants to come get Caleb Williams? And whatever you get, you continue to have an embarrassment of riches. That's fine.
Yep.
But now you're
Yep.
all in on Justin if you trade number one, but you have to do it the right way. I think there's one of two options, and then you tell me what you think. I think you go Caleb Williams if that's the move, you take him, and then at nine you go get Roma Dunze out of University of Washington. And I will tell you, Eric, as much as that means Caleb Williams is here, I will run to Springfield, Illinois barefoot if Roma Dunze is a Bear next year. I don't care. I don't care. I love that guy so much. He's already like top five. Mike Pendleton loves in the NFL. He hasn't played it
Okay.
down in the NFL yet.
Fair enough.
But if you don't do that, I think you trade down no further than 3. You go get
Yeah,
Marvin Harrison Jr. And
there you go.
then you have 9. You can go get a Dallas Turner out of Alabama, which I'm not sold on, and I'll name one guy. The reason why I'm backing up the Brinks truck for Brian Burns out of Carolina, who's a free agent. Give me Brian Burns opposite of Montez Sweat. I'm good. Matt Eberflus can coach a defense. That much I'm sure of. And then if you don't, a lot of people are saying Brock Bowers. I don't think you need a Brock Bowers when you have a Cole Kmet. I think you go Caleb and Odunze, or you go Marvin Harrison. I'm not against going Marvin Harrison and Odunze in the first round. People call me crazy. But if you don't do 2 wide receivers, I think you go wide receiver, edge rusher, or wide receiver, offensive lineman. But I
Yeah,
would say
and
trade the pick.
that's the route that I think I go. Um, it one way or another. I mean, they have to decide right now if Justin Fields is their guy for the future going forward because um, you get a quarterback from this class. If you're looking for a quarterback, you get it from this class, right? You don't wait. So if that's not the route you go, then you are committing to Justin Fields, which I think is fine. But I think you've got to land Marvin Harrison Jr. in that case. And I like the way their defenses looked. And so maybe just a little offensive line help. If you have Marvin Harrison Jr. out there, I like what they've got in the backfield. Obviously, DJ Moore is excellent. Cole Kmet, I think, is an emerging star. If you put DJ Moore opposite Marvin Harrison Jr., and that's what you have for Justin Fields. Those are the weapons that he has around him, along with being such a weapon himself. Man, that's a recipe for good things. I think that's the route I would go if it were me. I like Justin Fields. I like him quite a bit. So you give him another elite target to throw to, a little more protection to give him a little more time to make those decisions, and then the things he can do with his legs on top of it. I like Roshan Johnson. I think he's going to be really good in that
I think he's
backfield. So
running back 1. Yeah.
yeah, me too, me too. So to me, I don't overthink it. I don't hit the reset button with my quarterback right now. Um, it's going to be hard watching. I think everybody now wants to land the next CJ Stroud. Like, oh, look what you can do with the rookie QB. Like, no, dude, this doesn't happen. Like, this isn't normal. Um,
And he's a
but
bad test taker, so we throw that out.
Yeah, right. So anyhow, I every time I talk to a Bears fan, I always get suckered into Bears talk, man.
I, I'm not. That was the only question I had because I was gonna say as a segue. When we talked and we reminisced and we came full circle about our friendship in sports broadcasting, right? You mentioned how I probably debated something with you. And I think the more and more I think about it over this past hour that we've talked, it was likely basketball that I debated
Oh
with
yeah,
you because we tend to agree on things in football. On the gridiron, I think we are one of the same. On the basketball court, I don't believe so. But as this whole thing started to come to fruition of you coming on the show, it's because you got me in a Facebook group, and I've been very well behaved. There's a lot of posts in that group that I want to comment on, and I
get
might
in there,
start
dude.
contributing.
Get your hands dirty.
but but in the past week, since you and I really reconnected, we saw Luka score 73, Joel Embiid scored 70, Carl
Yep.
Anthony Towns scored 62. I think Devin Booker scored 62, and it's all fun and exciting. There's 2 debates, and the bigger debate is: has basketball been ruined, or have the players just gotten this damn good?
Yeah, and that's the answer, right? It's I
Yeah.
the point I always make, and I'm so long winded on there that I know a lot of those goofballs don't read everything that I say. Um, is that evolution is like scientifically proven. It happens, right? And so but for some reason, with sports fans, they believe that it happens everywhere except for basketball. It stopped in the 90s, right? everywhere in the whole planet, everything evolved. We had it, but for some reason in basketball in the 90s, it stopped. And it's regressed since then. They're worse athletes. They're weaker. There's like it's like and I've come to realize is that not only are these guys not watching the product today, right? So the same reason when they argue about who should be the third guy in the Cardinals rotation, I don't say anything because I don't watch baseball. So I don't get on there and argue with them. But they love to argue with me about basketball, the sport I actually watch. When they don't, they watch it on Sports Center. That's not the same. They watch Michael Jordan highlights on YouTube, but they don't go back and watch the games. And if you go back and watch the games, and Mike, I don't know if you know, but there are full length games on YouTube from
Yeah, yeah.
any decade you want to watch them 80s, 90s, full length, start to finish. Watch those. And then watch the game today. And you tell me if players are that much bigger, faster, stronger, and skilled today because it is inarguable if you watch those games and then you watch these games. The the skill level it takes for these guys to get buckets now to to be able to score on the defense that is being played because it is being played, the skill level that they have to make these shots is mind blowing. Like if you watch a college game with two ranked top 10 teams, you might see two or three shots all game that are on the level that the NBA guys are making routine buckets.
Yep.
But you see the high points, you Josh, these guys are soft. Nobody plays defense like they used to. It's like what they don't clothesline guys in the lane anymore. Like, okay, that's not defense. And that wasn't happening and then not getting called. There were dirty plays and dirty fouls, but they were still fouls. Like, so it nothing has really changed defensively except now you have to score on better athletes who are not allowed to grab and hold anymore. So what do they have to do? They have to play actual defense. They have to get their body in front of yours, which is real defense, which guys back then didn't have to play. So you talk about lazy. They didn't have to. They could grab and hold. They were allowed. Oh, I
When
hate
people
checking. Oh, okay, get your body in front of somebody like these guys have to do now. I'm telling you that the product today is far superior than it's ever been. The problem is nobody's watching, and nobody's watching because the games don't mean anything. That's a whole nother conversation.
when people say there's no defense being played, you see the
Yeah,
hat I'm wearing. The reason this fanhood was created was because of a man who did something that we had not seen in years, and that was Marcus Smart. No, pissed off. I'm still pissed off that he got traded to Memphis.
sure,
It's really,
sure,
I'll say this, it's really hard to get pissed off though when you're watching a team go 20-0 to start the season at
yeah,
home. It's really hard. But every time someone says that those same comments about no defense, I go, yeah, because Dylan Brooks would be in the league if he didn't play defense. Patrick Beverly would be in the league if he
right.
didn't play defense. Not Marcus Smart is a little far stretch, but there are guys that are in the league. This we all hate Draymond Green, but we don't hate Draymond Green because he's dropping 30. So I mean, why do we hate him? Because he annoys your favorite player, because he
Yeah,
bothers your favorite player, or because he plays defense on your favorite player and you can't stand it and you can't believe it, you won't admit to it. So
Mike, and the only
um
people that will argue that are people who don't watch. That's it. But
yeah,
they
yeah.
argue the loudest because they think back to a day when what they remember growing up worshiping their childhood heroes, larger than life guys, they remember this being something that it wasn't, right? And so then they are comparing the short clips that they see on Sports Center to their memories from 30 years ago when they were kids watching grown-ups who they worship like gods play, a professional sport. It's like this. What's a sitcom you grew up watching? Did you watch
I
like
don't really
Saved by
know
the
that.
Bell? Did you watch like Saved by the
No.
Bell?
No,
Any Disney shows, anything like that?
not
Just all
really, to
sports
be
for you all
honest
the
with you.
time. All right.
But
So
honestly, yes. Like honestly,
that's
sport.
okay. That's pretty
Right.
cool. That's fine.
Monday
Yeah.
Night Raw was my sitcom.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. But for sitcoms, right? So a lot of us in my age, we grew up watching Saved by the Bell, and we love Saved by the Bell. We loved it then. We grew up with it. It was a big part of our childhood. And we'll say now, oh man, we'll turn on one of these Disney shows that our kids watch and be like, oh man, this is weak. You guys should have been watching Saved by the Bell's great. And then you go back and watch it, and it's trash. Like it's the same way with sports. When you grow up watching something as a child and you've got the posters on your wall, it is in your head, it's the greatest thing ever. But then when you're an adult and you go back and reflect on it, it's not quite what you remember. And that's what we have with sports fans all the time. And especially with basketball, because everybody bailed on the league, after Jordan left, because that was their hero. So everybody bailed. And now they think nobody will ever be as good. The league will never be as good. All these guys are soft. Nobody can play anymore. Nobody will ever be MJ, and that's it. But they don't give anybody an opportunity, and they don't watch to back up their claims. My
Yeah,
bad,
and
dude.
that's
You
the
save this
hard.
for the end. We're going to be here for another hour. It's
No. No. And
I got a
thank you. You're
dentist
giving me
appointment in
some
a little
motivation.
bit, so
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm getting ready to wrap this up here shortly, but I needed to go on a rant too because I needed to play devil's advocate for this conversation with NBA scoring, right? And
okay.
going back to the team that I'm rocking, number one seed in the East, the Boston Celtics, I believe, yes, best record in the NBA. What you're not seeing from this team, and it's so frustrating because I'm coming off of watching their game last night against the Pelicans, where they were down 17, and you can say, "Wow, they gave Jaylen Brown 300 million. They've got a top five guy debatably, in Jason Tatum in the league.
Yeah.
They are not the team that's going to watch one of their two guys go off for 50, 60 points. They're plenty more capable of doing so. But my thing is, okay, Joel Embiid dropped 70 points. His team is third in the East. Devin Booker dropped 62. His team is sixth in the West. Karl Anthony Towns, yeah, he dropped 62, but his team lost to the Hornets that night. So, my question, trying to play devil's advocate in all of this, these games are amazing. Luka Doncic, 73 and a damn near triple double. His team is seventh right now in the West. Are we as basketball fans willing to sacrifice team success to have these incredible, memorable performances? Because they whether you want to agree with me or not, Eric, they do go hand in hand because there are not these teams. I'll say this, and I said this plenty of times this season. The Celtics are too selfless. They're too selfless. They're like, oh, well, Jason Tatum's having a bad game. Jaylen Brown will bail us out. And if those two guys are going to have a bad game, we've got Porzingis. They're just too selfless. And that's why they get punched in the mouth a couple of times that they've lost this year. They've had some really bad losses. But I would take bad losses every 9 games if it meant I didn't have to watch a 6 seed team have a guy put up 70 points every 2 weeks.
I mean, I think there's something to that. I don't think you're off there, but I will I will say this: the one thing that all of those teams have in common that you just brought up, right? I know the Celtics are the one seed. All of those other teams that you brought up are still a seed, right? So the
Yeah.
season ends today; they're in the postseason. That's for the NBA. Like one of the problems I mentioned it a minute ago when I said nobody's watching is that these games don't mean anything, man. These guys are out there playing and they're playing hard enough. But because there are so many games and because ultimately once you get into a 7 game series, nobody's that worried about home court or not. All you got to do is win one on the other court. So nobody's that worried about it. So we are not seeing teams play the kind of team basketball that it takes to win at the end, except for like Boston. And that's the reason why they're a one seed. They're out there playing team basketball every night. But these other teams know, hey, we can take a night where we just let him get his, you know what I mean, get his 70 points. We can kind of chill. It'll be cool for him. We can kind of chill. It doesn't really matter what we do this game, we're going to the playoffs. It's, you know what I mean? It's the urgency's not there to, oh man, we have to be clicking on all cylinders as a team, night in and night out. But it's refreshing to see a team like Boston who has that mentality going in to the regular season games. But for the most part, that's not what these guys do, man. They'll take a night where they'll say, "Hey, big guy, go out and get yours." You know what I mean? We're just gonna keep feeding you. You got the hot hand tonight, Luca. You just keep shooting. You just keep shooting. You know what I mean? Like, but they're all playoff
I'll tell you what
teams.
I'll tell you what I don't enjoy. I don't enjoy Joe Mazzulla after the game yesterday. By the way, I love Joe Mazzulla. If I was reincarnated as a basketball coach in another life, it would have been Joe Mazzulla. He watches the town before every game. I mean, he likes jiu-jitsu. He's a man backed by his faith. You know, like Joe Mazzulla is who I wish I was if I was a basketball coach. You imagine
Fair
watching
enough.
the same movie before every game,
No.
and then all of a sudden and then all of a sudden, some moron ahead of you, Ime Udoka, makes a disgusting, act inside the front office, and then you're like, "Oh, I just get gifted this team." Okay, okay,
Right.
no problem. But he
Lottery
said yesterday,
ticket.
he goes, "No."
Yeah.
He said yesterday after the win, when they were down by 17, so the Pelicans came back and won. He's like, "Oh, I want this. I want this. I want us to be down a lot. I want us to blow leads. I want us to be that team because I want this narrative of we can't be beat and we're the team to be. I want that to go away. So let us keep coming back." And it's like I don't love that. I understand kind of the meaning behind it, but I don't necessarily love it. Um Now, I want to have some fun with you here. So, we are recording this on Tuesday. This Friday, I'm going on a little mini vacation and I am going to Oklahoma City and I'm crossing that off the list and I'm going to see them play the Charlotte Hornets.
Okay.
Maybe I'll tell you my reasoning why. I'm a big Brandon Miller fan. Um I have come to try to find a little comedic role in my life, Eric, and
Good.
I have a very beautiful comment that most people wouldn't find that funny, but I think those with a good sense of humor would find funny. I don't know if it's fit for this podcast, so I'll tell you off air. But I like Brandon
Oh,
Miller as a basketball player. I have an extra reason why I love Brandon Miller. But anyways, when I look at the Oklahoma City Thunder, I look at a team. You got SGA, and then you got a bunch of young guys. And then you look at their organization, and it's just first round pick after first round pick after first
yeah.
round pick. What does success in Oklahoma City do for the NBA? Because you're like, they could really like just take all these picks, go get another superstar, and it's not our biggest market. Like I was doing some research, and this website I think has them on average a beer at the game is like $6 here in Chicago. If you try to spend $6 at a Bulls game, they might give you a newspaper at the stadium.
Truth.
That's it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
what does it seem like? Okay, I mean, we saw Denver, and I'm not saying Denver's a huge market, but we always have. It doesn't seem like no matter how good Oklahoma City has ever been or could be, that they'll ever draw in the crowd that the NBA needs. But this team isn't going anywhere. So, what does their success do for the NBA?
So the NBA is it's a star driven league, right? So it almost doesn't matter like what franchise it is. And this is why, we've seen all of a sudden Milwaukee is relevant. Why are they relevant?
Stars,
You
Giannis.
know, Giannis. Yeah, now, yeah, and but Giannis made them relevant. Now, you know what I mean? Now they get Dame in there too. They're relevant. Denver wasn't really relevant, but now, yeah, they've got a star. Yeah, he's a very reluctant star. He doesn't want to be one, but that almost makes him more of a star, right? Everybody loves Jokic, and he doesn't love anybody, and that's a perfect thing. But as long as it's the league doesn't like it if like the NBA is not set up regional. That's the difference between NBA and MLB. they're not a regional like organization. They want to be national. They want their players to be recognizable stars all over the world. MLB is happy if you know one of their guy. You can't go to the local Target because everybody there knows you. But if you drive for 90 minutes, you can walk around like a normal person. That's fine. Nobody cares. They're MLB's real happy with their regional stars. The NBA needs national, if not international, stars. So what they don't want is Oklahoma City to be a good, relevant team without a marketable star, which is kind of what they are right now.
I would highly debate that. Shea
Who is it?
Gilgeous-Alexander
I
is
know, I
a
know, and I knew you were going there because for basketball people, yeah, that guy's awesome, right? But I mean, he could walk into our Target and probably nobody would even know. You know what I'm saying? Like it's he within basketball circles and for basketball fans, yeah, that guy's awesome. But he's not like an international marketable star for the league on the level of like a Giannis or a Jokic or so that's when Oklahoma City
no,
was
yeah.
good, when they were good with KD and Russ and Harden coming off the bench, those guys were young, but they were already like next level superstars that were recognized everywhere. Like that's what the NBA banks on. So they as good as Shea as good as he is, like they kind of need him to take another step up from like a superstar standpoint to be like, okay, fine, Oklahoma City is this team now. Unfortunately, that's just a well-run organization. So unfortunately for the NBA, OKC is going to be floating around there always, and I don't think the NBA loves it. I think they want somebody there they can kind of, you know, they can put on promos and stuff and get the average fan hyped up about it. I mean,
This
that's
will be the most random. This will be the most random debate to end this, but we're gonna debate it anyways. Would you put SGA in the same caliber as Tyrese Halliburton?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. I was a
yes,
little worried because I think I rightfully so he's an all-star
yeah.
and he being Tyrese Halliburton and also Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. But with especially with the All-Star game being in Indiana, they are going to elevate Tyrese Halliburton to a guy that he's probably not. Now I thought going from Chicago to Oklahoma City, and I'm going to be 32 this year, so I'm not going to walk into a arena as a near 32-year-old man with a sign says I traveled 900 miles just to see this game. I
Yeah, you
thought
shouldn't.
about it. I thought about it, but then I saw something on Twitter. I think yesterday, someone was like, one person was like, came from Japan to see SGA, and the other was like, came from Perth, Australia to see SGA. And they both got meet and greets and autographs. And I'm like, cool. So I just threw a rock and I ended up in Oklahoma City. These guys traveled halfway. Now, nobody cares about what I'm doing this week anymore.
Nope.
Those guys took my shine. So, but
Yeah,
both those guys basketball wise speaking, deserve to be all-star starters.
100%.
One of them, one of them will get elevated to a level he's probably not at. You say Target, and I think it's so on point, but I'd even take it a step further. Put them outside the arena. Put them downtown. Not in their home
Yeah,
city though. Put
there you go.
put Tyrese Halliburton downtown Chicago. How many people are running to him? Not Shea
That's
Gilgeous,
what.
same
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
And
They're just they're
it's
not bankable
frustrating.
superstars for the league yet. They're regional stars, but they haven't made that next leap. Talent wise, they're there. Sure, sure. Talent wise, they are definitely there, but they just haven't made that leap yet to where the league can put them out there in marquee matchups and get people excited. I mean, basketball heads, yeah, for sure. I mean, we love those guys. They can hoop and we know it. We watch them, but
Yeah, I'm
you're
so excited.
yeah, you throw up a Tyrese Halliburton post in that sports group that I invited you to and see how that lands.
I might do so just to test the
You guys
theory.
won't know who you're
Eric,
talking about. Yeah, who? Oh, he's no Reggie
this has
Miller.
been great.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. He's not Reggie Miller. Even
Yeah.
I would go. You know me because I like to troll. I would even go, "Wow, that Sabonis and Halliburton trade probably worked out for both people, right?" They're like, "What? What?
Nobody
What?"
will know what you're talking about.
And Sabonis just set or tied a franchise record for most rebounds in a Kings game last night. He tied the great Chris Webber. But Eric, over an hour. This feels like I'm 15 years old calling in the Fantasy Football 101 again. Um, I I can't thank you enough for your time. Let's not make this a once every 8-year thing.
Okay.
You and I will be
Yeah.
talking in 2024, and this was fun. I will say this, and I'm not brown nosing here. Thank you for getting me involved into this business. Thank you for always supporting and watching from afar. And as I try to get full circle and try to get back to, listen, I love MMA. You can see I've got posters everywhere.
Yeah.
I counted the other day. I've got 30 posters of fights hanging up, and I've got more kind of in storage. It's great. It's fantastic. There's a different form of sports storytelling for me. But I just sitting here for the past hour, I feel more rejuvenated than I have in a very long time. So thank you for coming on. Thank you for lighting that fire again, and thanks for always being like the main reason I got involved in this.
Man, I mean, you did. I just told you to do it. You did it all. But no, I thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it. It's good catching up with you, and we will be talking. We'll be talking where things aren't recorded soon.
All right, all right. Well,
Okay.
look for that Brandon Miller text message, and
Can't
I'll
wait.
probably start blowing up that Facebook group.
All right, man. Niners. Niners win.
I didn't even ask. I didn't even ask because I knew where you were going.
Yeah,
Eric
yeah,
Pedigo,
yeah.
thank you so much.
See you, brother.